Hey, game changers. All right, listen, I want to unpack 10 things that require zero talent. 10 things that require no talent. Here's the thing. We overvalue talent. Like, we count on it to be enough, I think, too often. And talent at some level, it's just an invitation, right? It's an invitation that like, hey, knock, knock. You're kind of good at this. You've got some natural gifts here. You've got some talent here. It's sort of like God's way of starting you on first base with something, right? But you still gotta round the corners, touch the bags, round second, round third, touch home, take a couple more at bats, do it again, right? And so I wrote a blog about the top 10 things that require zero talent, and people loved it. So it felt very fitting to bring it to life on Game Changers and to add a little color to it and to sort of live into it a little bit more. You know, I love stories, to attach some stories, even of mine, to some of these things. And so I'm going to unpack 10 things that require zero talent. Number one, work ethic. Now, here's the thing. People talk about effort. Often when you see people talk about things that require no talent, they'll say effort. Well, this is true. But to me, work ethic is effort plus consistency. So in service of taking it a little deeper, I think we need to consider work ethic. In other words, effort is at some level temporary. Work ethic is more consistent. One of the guests I had on my podcast who was a blast and is still a friend is Carly Lloyd. And she talks about this on this podcast I had with her. It's actually episode 66 if you want to check it out. But her coach used to always say to her, empty the tank. In other words, he would say, it was how he signed off on his notes to her, when she would call him after games. And he really didn't want to start with how many goals did you score, how many, anything that happened sort of relative to the score per se. It was, did you work hard? And, I think this applies to anyone else in any field at some level relative to consistent effort, which is work ethic. And so this became sort of Carly's motto, which was empty the tank every time she'd finish a practice, anything. And I think even now, still in her life, at a different phase in her life, it's this question that she keeps front and center. Did I empty the tank? Did I give it all I had? And at some level, am I doing that consistently? And often when we think about work ethic, it includes doing extra, doesn't it? Right? Like, it includes doing a little bit more and doing it consistently. So number one, work ethic. Number two, body language. The stats around this are really interesting, right? And for me as a speaker, it's a fascinating thing because I don't have the stats in front of me, but body language and how we, tone, timing, all of these kinds of things are almost playing a bigger weight than the words that we say. And so body language, I think, is something that we want to be remarkably intentional about paying attention to. And it requires no talent. I mean, your nonverbal sends such a powerful message, so pay really close attention to it because other people are. Other people are paying attention to whether your head's down or up, whether your shoulders are back and strong and confident or sagging, whether you're walking slowly or quickly, whether you're leaning in or leaning back, whether your arms are crossed or not, whether you're squared up with your shoulders to somebody or not. Body language tells us so much. It requires no talent. There's probably teachers listening, maybe coaches listening, executives listening, leaders listening, parents listening. I love what Gino Arayama said when he was on the show. He said, if your body language is bad, he said, you will never get in the game, no matter how good you are. Wow. Coaches pay really close attention to this, And it's something that I think we can all pay close attention to, regardless of what we do and for whom we do it for. Pay really close attention to it because it sends powerful messages and it requires no talent. Number three, be present. We live in a world where it's harder than ever. It takes no talent to be where your feet are. It takes no talent to connect. It takes no talent to be so present that you're respecting the other person's time and their ability to lock in with you as well. When we are present, you know what else happens that's super cool? We listen better. We listen more deeply. And I believe it's a choice. It's a choice to be present or not. It requires no talent. Number 4, attitude. Attitude sends a message that you're in, right? That you believe, that you're committed. Attitude sends such a powerful message. Requires zero talent. Number 5, curiosity. It unlocks more chances for us to be resourceful. You know I'm a huge fan of curiosity. I'm a huge fan of stories. So I'll tell you something kind of fun. When we think about talent not being the linchpin, not being enough, we need talent plus these things that I'm rattling off. You know, when you're in a business for almost 2 decades like I was, where there's, as I've heard this stat, there's more agents than athletes to represent. You can imagine talent isn't enough. For me, any abilities that I had to connect with athletes it's not enough. I mean, it's got to be talent plus a lot of other things. And curiosity was one of those other things that helped me connect and recruit players. And so, when we think about curiosity, when we think about how it requires no talent, but the power of asking questions unlocks chances for us. So I remember I had a baseball player, and I found out from a media person before he was coming up to the office that he loved peanut M&Ms. And I remember the media guy saying, look, I know this sounds really weird, Molly, but like not plain peanut. Now, I had asked him prior to that, like, tell me a little bit about him. Like, what is he like? What is he not like? Right? Like, and I remember the media guy saying, look, it's kind of weird, but I got to tell you, man, every time I'm interviewing this guy, he's got a bag of peanut M&Ms. It's crazy. And so when he came up to the office, when I was recruiting him, guess what was in bowls every single corner he turned of that office? He got off the elevator, every corner, peanut M&Ms. But that was just a little thing, not anchored in talent. It was just about getting a little bit curious, which in turn drove the opportunity to connect. Curiosity to me is something I really do. I live by it. I do a prep call before every single keynote. And I get on the phone with the leaders of the organization and others that are involved in the event. And I ask so many questions because in order for me to connect, it's about getting in their heads and hearts and asking questions so that I can know what's working, what's not working, what are the things we want the audience to do differently when they're done. How is their energy? Do they negotiate? Are relationships important to the work that they do? I ask so many questions, and it's in service of what is there a language that they lean into a lot? Now, granted, I do feel like I have a little bit of talent and relative to God-given talent from the speaking perspective, but that's not enough. I mean, that is not even close. And so when we can unlock curiosity in service of even the work that we do, inside of the work that we do, it's a powerful thing. So I would encourage you to recognize how can you lean into this more. The other thing that I think is important to consider about curiosity is it also sends a message. When you're at a cocktail party, when you're, in a meeting, when you're wherever you may be in life, interacting and engaging with other people, curiosity, it sends a message of, I think, humility. It also sends a message of confidence, and it feels like a really cool tightrope, doesn't it, to walk this humility and confidence tightrope that I believe we can leverage through curiosity. And I talk about this as a key in my latest book, Dynamic Drive. I talk about something I call the curiosity edge. And it's inside of the curiosity key that I break down. But curiosity requires no talent. And man, is it a powerful thing to allow us to be the best version of ourselves. Number 6, kindness. Now, here's the thing. I believe that no one is exempt from this. No one is exempt from kindness. I mean, it takes no talent to be kind. It takes no talent to be to be thankful and appreciative to others. You know, when I was dating before I was married 24 years ago, by the way, I was at 24th anniversary recently, you know, I'd always watch the way the guy would talk to the wait staff or waiters, or if we valeted a car, you know, were they kind? Were they grateful? Were they appreciative? You know, in airports, flight attendant, whatever it might be. I mean, it was just, are they just genuinely kind? Because to me, that sends a message of really where their heart is. And, you know, whenever I'd interview somebody when I was an agent and we were in an office and we had a receptionist, I would always at the end, after the candidate would leave, I would always ask the receptionist about them from, it was a woman at this time, Kay, what was he or she, what were they like? Were they kind? Were they thankful? Were they dismissive of her in any way whatsoever? I mean, I wanted to know what was at the root of that. And so kindness, it requires no talent. And you know what's amazing? People have a lot going on in their lives. And when you thank the Amazon driver and hand them a health bar or a Coke or whatever it might be, I mean, it is so easy to be kind. And you know, you never know where somebody is at in their life, in their head, in their heart, with their energy, what they're going through. And sometimes that can really turn a corner for someone. You know, perseverance, number 7, and grit. It's a mindset to me, right? You know, when we think about things that require zero talent, perseverance and grit require no talent at all. And doing what you want most, not what you want right now, is this grittiness that I think we need a little bit more of in the world. And I always think that if we can help people believe that no is just feedback, that's all it is. I got to tell you, when I wrote my very first book, I had no idea what the publishing process was like. But what I remember so vividly was when I started to get curious about it, candidly using one of these examples, I was sending letters at the time to all kinds of publishers all over the country, and you know, one after another. And I'm not kidding you, I lived in a 750 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment. I could have wallpapered my entire apartment with every single one of those rejection letters from publishers, every single one, until I finally got a publisher to take it on. And I needed that help at that time. And now there's a lot of other, you know, ways that people push books out. But in you know, early, gosh, what was it? Probably 2000s, you know, that was sort of the route that you went typically. So perseverance was so key for me. And again, it's key for all of us, and it requires no talent. Number 8, preparation. You know, oftentimes, and in one of my previous blogs about things that require zero talent, I said, number 1, be on time. And 100% I still agree with that. But I think when we think about preparation, being on time can almost ladder up underneath that, can it? Because when we prepare, it shows we care. When we're on time, it shows we care. It shows we respect others. I love what Navy SEALs say, which is the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. So good. Or here's another one. Under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. This is true in so many areas of our lives. Preparation is foundational. The other day, my brother called me one morning, and I was on the road and I was getting ready for a keynote, and I was sort of reviewing my notes and the prep call notes and really just kind of tightening up, customizing it a bit and kind of tightening up. And this is really a routine that I do several weeks and days before an event, but then even the morning of, really just getting really, really in the heads and the hearts of the audience. And I've probably given 1,000 keynotes, and I remember my brother being like, God, man, wow, like, do you do that? And I'm like, yeah, because it requires no talent to prepare. And I agree with the way the Navy SEALs frame this up. And I think it's important for all of us to consider when we take that extra time to prepare for a conversation, a moment, a meeting, a presentation, whatever it might be, we are more confident when we step into it, right? But we need to create the time and the space to prepare, to block our calendars before or after these important moments. And it requires no talent to prepare. Number 9, accountability, right? It requires zero talent to be accountable. In other words, when things maybe don't go as expected, get really curious about what you can learn. Ask how you can grow from it, yourself and others. But most importantly, own it, right? Like, to me, this is something that 100% I take from my days in the sports space, where, I mean, you see great teammates do this. When something maybe doesn't go the way they plan, they sort of almost pat their chest, almost as if to say, sorry, man, that was me. I got it. Accountability requires zero talent. And then number 10, here we are in the month of November. Thanksgiving is coming up. Gratitude. The truth is, if you're listening to this in a pair of AirPods or other expensive earpieces, you've probably got a lot to be grateful for. And when we think about gratitude, it's something that we can practice. And I'm going to dig into that actually in my next solo episode in detail as we embark on Thanksgiving. And something I think is really important to all of us, which is, how do we teach our kids to be more grateful? But gratitude requires zero talent. So I did version 1 as a blog, 10 things that require zero talent. And then I did sort of a V2 of that, 10 things that require zero talent. And so it felt fitting to do a podcast on this. And so this is a bit of a combination and some new things that I think are remarkably important for us right now. So again, real quick, consider these things. I added some color to all of them. But number 1, work ethic. Number 1, work ethic. Sorry, Chad, I've got to scroll a little quicker here. So here we go. Number 1, work ethic. Work ethic requires zero talent. Body language. Number 3, being present. Number 4, attitude. Attitude requires zero talent. Number 5, curiosity. Unpack that a little bit. Check out the Curiosity Edge also. I break down. Number 6, kindness. Number 7, perseverance. Grit requires zero talent. Number 8, preparation. Navy SEALs and a lot of people, they have that down. Number 9, accountability. Accountability requires zero talent. And here we go, the cherry on top, the thing that I believe is integral and ties so deeply to so many things relative to fulfillment and happiness in our lives. Gratitude, number 10. It was always interesting when a player would get drafted, and if they were a top round guy, so they're signing for millions of dollars, let's say they're coming out of high school, they're 18 years old, I would find an opportunity before they would leave for, training camp or their next step at that moment, sometimes varied. But when a player would get drafted, and let's say he was a top round guy, one of the things that I knew that he had heard a lot was, you are so talented. Like, you're just a natural. Like, wow, man, you have so many God-given gifts. I knew that guy had heard that a lot. Now, I'm not dismissing the fact that they probably worked incredibly hard, no question about it, to get to that place. No doubt about it. But the data around first-round players that make it to the big leagues and don't would surprise you. I'm not sure exactly what it is now, but it's like 50% when I was an agent. In other words, the 50 that make it are talent plus a lot of these things that we just rattled off. So I would always find an opportunity to remind the athlete that, hey, look, the bar's been raised. Talent isn't enough. We need talent plus grit, talent plus perseverance, talent plus attitude, talent plus discipline, talent plus curiosity, right? It was reminding them that I know this is something you've probably heard a lot, but it's not enough. And I think it can be a disaster at some level because they hear it so much that they begin to think that it's enough. And as they continue to raise the bar and they step into a sandbox with a whole lot of people with a whole lot of talent, the ones that make it are talent plus. And I think it's no different than for anyone, maybe in their youth, who is really, really, really bright, Or maybe you're in an organization, you've recently been promoted. You've been really good at what you've done. Maybe you have a lot of talent, depending on your journey, no question about it. But the truth is, as the bar gets raised, it's all the more important to recognize that talent got you on first base. That's where it got you. Maybe you worked your way to second, and maybe you're, whatever that might look like for you. Or maybe you're listening to this and you're an assistant coach and you go to a head coach. This is more important than ever, a moment in which you can consider, hey, talent plus all of these things that we're rattling off. Maybe you're a teacher that's now become a principal. Maybe you're at some level in your career and you're laddering up for whatever the circumstances are. It's talent plus so many of these other things because the bar's been raised. So here's what I would say. Just say to talent, hey, talent, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank God for the talent that you were given. But I'm not solely going to rely on you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But I'm going to do talent plus, believe talent plus, step into talent plus. That's when we can make our greatest impact. I hope these 10 things that require zero talent is something that you can lean into, something that you can look back at. And check out the blogs at MollyFletcher.com too, because there's some iterations of this there as well. All right, game changers. Until next time, big hugs.